does like a lot more by not acting than by acting. Okay? So this is where the whole approach is intention behind that act. The same act can be highly selfish, irresponsible, or the same act can become what? Something which is
larger.
Yeah, absolutely. Playing your role for larger good. And it is a very, in fact, it's a little free you. Okay? So this is why Bhagavad Gita is really, it's the whole subtle process of thinking. It is, at times what it says is counterintuitive. If people don't understand Gita, oh, why is Lord Krishna asking him to fight? You know, people have simplistic ideas about what is right and what is wrong, and they try to fit in the teaching of Gita within those simple ideas, and it doesn't fit. The whole thing is you have to make your buddhi subtler and subtler to see how beautiful and how complex the life is and how you can navigate through difficult situations with clarity. Okay. So this is what he says, if you do it for the sake of yajna, then it will not something which is going to bind you, it is going to actually free you, because you do what is to be done by you. Okay? And then he says, evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati bhajaha akadurindriya ramaha yam partha sajivati. Here he says, this whole imagery of yajna, which is a Vedic ritual, he extends it to the whole universe itself. Okay? The whole universe is one big yajna which is going on. Okay? Each one of us is a participant in that yajna. Okay? And how do you, what is the nature of your participation is going to affect what? The nature of the universe. Each one of us is not just a recipient, we are also what? Actors in the universe. And the whole universe is a yajna. For a yajna to be performed well, it requires what? Each one does its own job. Because if you don't do your own job and you are constantly only looking for what? Benefiting from others' job, then what happens? Here he says, Agharo indriya namaha bodham partha sajivati. Okay? So this chakram, this whole universe which is set up in a way which is what we call interdependent, interconnected universe. You are born in that. Okay? What others do affects you, what you do affects others. If you don't play your part properly, not only you harm yourself, but what happens? You disturb the whole big ecology of things. Okay. So therefore, here he says, either the person is not doing one's part, or the person is only concentrating on what? Getting, exactly, getting as much as possible and giving the least in return is somebody who is living in vain. The person has not understood the reality of existence. Okay? So therefore, there is this story that I tell you about Tolstoy. I think I told you in this class. This little boy, the forged coupon.
Yes.
I think I told
Somewhere else.
somewhere else. Okay. There is a there is this story that you must understand, that how one little action that we do, I think I must have told here, no? How it affects so many.
I think you told us in Chile.
Maybe I told you in Chile. Okay. There is a story by Leo Tolstoy. Very beautiful story. The title of the story is Forged Coupon. Okay. Now it is set in Russia, and it starts with, on a Sunday morning, father is reading the newspaper, okay, and a little boy comes to father and says, "Father, this is the beginning of the month. It's time for my allowance." You know, every month the little boy gets his allowance. So the father says, "Okay, now I'm going to give you an allowance," and his allowance was 2 rubles. Okay. Now this time the boy says, "Father, this time I need 10 rubles." Father said, "What? How come? I have told you your allowance is 2 rubles. Now you are asking me for 10 rubles?" And he says, "You know, Father, there was this very nice cultural show, okay, and it was a beautiful show. It was an opera, and I really wanted to see it. So I went with my friend. I borrowed this 7 rubles from him, right? Or 8 rubles from him. 8 rubles from him to buy the ticket and go for the show. And I promised him that at the beginning of the month I will pay him back. So now I need to pay back my friend. So I need this 8 extra rubles." The father said, "Who asked you to go and see this opera without my permission? Okay? I have told you that this is your allowance and you have to figure out how to live within this allowance. And I am not listening to anything. You figure out how you are going to solve this problem. Don't ask me for more money. No more." Okay? So then he gives him, he says, "Now this is your monthly allowance, which is 2 rubles." And he gives a coupon, okay, which has 2 rubles. And he says, "You figure out how you are going to solve this problem." And getting angry that you gave him a big lecture that how you have to follow your parents and you can't do things without asking for permission and this and that, and now you have to live with consequences. Now the boy, in his mind, he says, "I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't go and waste this money on smoking or drugs or alcohol or anything. I did something which was a good thing to do, a cultural activity. It was not like some bad thing that I used it for. And my father is not even listening to me." Okay? Now, he wanted to be honest. He felt the responsibility of repaying. He says, "I can't go to my friend and say, now my father is not even listening to me. I thought he would support something like this, but he's totally rigid. Right? And he's totally not willing to see my standpoint. Now I'm stuck. How do I repay this with 8 rubles that I have borrowed from my friend?" He is really in a conflict. So he goes to his friend. He says, "Can you please help me? Can you lend me 8 rubles? The friend says, "No, I don't have that kind of money to lend you. I have my own little allowance, so I don't have that much extra." So now the boy feels totally stuck. He has this feeling of what? That I have borrowed, I have to pay back. Okay? And he also understands that I did not do anything wrong. So he doesn't understand what? Father's behavior. Okay? But he has to look for a solution. Then the other friend says, "What do you have?" So he says, "I have this 2 ruble coupon." So the friend says, "I have an idea." What? He says, "What we will do is, we'll put 1 in front, so it will become 12. Okay? Then, what you do, you go to a store and you buy some things worth 2-3 rubles, they will give you cash back. You pay your friend, and what? You will still have, keep the rest." The boy, now he says, he wants to be honest, please understand. He has that sense of responsibility. He sees no solution. Okay? So after he said, "Now what do I do?" This is the only way he sees. He understands that it's not totally right. He understands, right? But he sees no way out. So then he goes along. So what he does, that they add 1. So from then on, it becomes forged coupon. That is the name of the story, right? Then they have to now encash. So they go to a little store and they buy some sweets worth 2 rubles. And there was this woman who was at the store, the owner, and she sees these little 2 boys. They buy some sweets, and she just takes the coupon. They buy the sweets worth of 2 rubles, and she returns 10 rubles in cash. The boys are very happy. They said, wow, now the whole problem is solved. Not only they have sweets, they will pay back what, 8, and he will still have his what, 2, which is his normal allowance. He says, this is wonderful, right? So then immediately he goes back to his friend and he pays back this 8 rubles, and he feels, now I've solved the problem. Okay. Now the story goes on, and it says that this little this woman, right, at night her husband comes to do the accounts from where the boys bought the sweets. Okay. Now the husband is more, when he's doing the accounts, he immediately notices something wrong with his coupon. Right? So immediately he says, what is this coupon? So then this woman says, oh yeah, there were these 2 little boys, they bought some sweets, they gave me this coupon, and they bought sweets worth of 2, and I gave them 10 rupees back. The husband says, you are such a fool, right? That this is something that, this is not a right, this is a forged coupon, don't you see it? Then he starts abusing her. You are so useless, right? You don't even pay attention to anything. I can't even trust you with this simple thing, right? Can't you be just a little bit more alert? And don't be this emotional fool. Oh, 2 boys came and they gave me, and I didn't even really pay attention to it and all that. So he starts abusing her, getting angry with her. Okay? And this woman, in the meantime, in her mind thinks, this man is so rude, right? He just is like, for every small thing, we earn so much money, and just 10 rubles, and and he's constantly blaming me. He puts me down. He never can appreciate what I'm doing. My parents told me that he's insensitive, not to marry him, but why did I marry this man? So there is this whole big flare up, right? Now, so there is this husband very angry with wife very upset with husband. Then husband thinks, now how do I, he's only thinking financially, right? How do I get rid of this forged coupon myself, right? So he says, let me, in the city people will figure it out. Let me go to a little bit of countryside where there are peasants, okay? And let me buy some wood, because Russian winters are very, very severe. So I'll buy wood and I'll store this lot of wood. I'll buy it in bulk and I'll store it, and I'll give it to some peasant. Okay? So now there is this peasant in a small village around, in the periphery. Okay? Now he is waiting for somebody to buy his wood. He has collected it and all that. So now this person comes and buys in bulk. Okay? 12 rubles worth. So this person, the peasant, is very, very happy that, wow, today he has made some big sale. And now the husband is very happy he got rid of that coupon. He comes home, right? And now the peasant, at night, to celebrate his earning, he goes to a bar and he starts drinking vodka. Okay? Now, in payment, he pays this coupon, right? Then the bar owner figures it out, and what? He's a poor peasant, calls the police, puts him in jail, right? And the wife of this peasant is what? Totally shattered, because not only they lost the wood, right? The husband is put in the prison, and they have no money. Okay? And the story goes on. Then Tolstoy ends the story by saying, asking a question: who's responsible? Who's responsible for this series of events? Series of events.
As usual, the husband.
The father.
Not as usual as the father.
Right? We perform actions, but it's our little, but my rule, this is what it has to be, and we are just, so rigid when situations come in front of us. We think we are highly principled, okay? That we go by rules, and nothing can what?
Yeah, we can alter it.
Then all the absolutes, right? And imagine the chain of consequences. This is what we call Indra's net. Okay. Every action that you do, the number of consequences, and in fact, we have legacy of confusion or legacy of brightness. It's all carried on for generations. Not only now we affect many people, but it is carried on for generations. Okay. So therefore, if you don't recognize your interconnectedness, and if you don't recognize dharma and importance of interpreting dharma accurately, and your swadharma and different responsibilities within your swadharma, if you are not aware of that, imagine what kind of participation is there in this universe. Series of actions you have done from what, 18 from the adult life to now. What is the nature of that participation? And the whole thing is, the nature of karma is such that you can't get away with it. So therefore, whatever you give, somehow or the other comes back to you. In one form or the other. When it comes back, you don't realize it. That's why then you compound the whole problem by what? Saying the world is so unfair. Right? So this is what he says. If you don't understand the interconnectedness and interrelationships, and how there are laws which govern that, and if you don't align your life in keeping with those laws, you are not only harming what? The entire system, but what? You are also harming yourself. You have wasted away your life. So what seems like a very natural way of living is what? Maximizing my interest, right? And extracting as much as possible from the universe for my benefit is actually, according to Lord Krishna, it is a wasted life. Okay. So this is what he says, Agharu Indriya Ramaha. Indriya Ramaha means the person who is only making decisions based on what? What the senses report. Okay? Because you are born in a world and you are given 5 senses. The eyes can capture forms, the ears can hear the sounds, then your tongue can taste, your nose can smell, and your skin can touch. Okay? Within this, in fact, most of our activities are for what? Sense gratification. Most of our activities. Touch sensation, eating. When people call themselves foodies, and then the whole life is just on food. Okay? And more subtle, and more refined, and there is no end. And it's fine. Please don't carry complex, right? This is how the senses are. But if your life is only for sense gratification, then it is what? You will never be totally satisfied, and you want more and more. The whole orientation is what? This is not enough, I want more. And then this is not enough, I want more. Okay? So that will set you in a direction where you want to grab, and you want to grab, and you want to grab. And you still will never be satisfied, because there is always something more to be grabbed. Indriya Ramaha means the person who Indriyeshu Ramante iti Indriya Ramaha. The person who is only committed to the senses. Okay. There is a very nice, I will end with a nice story which is part of Kathopanishad. Okay. Kathopanishad uses again an imagery. Okay. And it is that from this countless flow of time, you have landed on this earth. Okay. And this, what you are given a chariot. A chariot is equivalent to, the chariot has what? 5 horses, then there are reins, and then there is a charioteer. This is what is equated to body. Okay. A chariot is a human body. 5 horses are what? 5 senses. A rein is what? Mind. And the person who runs the chariot is buddhi. Buddhi is your intellect. Right? Now, imagine if your intellect is not well cultivated, what happens? The horses and the charioteer himself doesn't know where to go, what is the purpose, where do I have to go, how should I channel my energies, nothing. The horses are going to run the show. 1 minute, what? The horse wants to drink water and will go somewhere else. Then next minute they want to eat, they'll go somewhere else. And it is that the horses will go here and there, and what? One day the whole thing will collapse and it's gone. Use this imagery with reference to our own life. You are given a buddhi, an intellect to figure out what is the purpose of life and to guide what? Your whole body and mind to achieve that purpose. If you don't have any clarity about what is it that I want in life and what is the purpose of my living, what will happen? The sense organs will take over. Okay? And there is no end to it. Okay? Now imagine if the Sarthi is skillful, the Sarthi knows where I want to go, the same horses which otherwise are a liability become what? Asset. Because without horses you can't go to where you want to go. So body can become a liability, the senses can become a liability, or they can also become an asset. Please understand, don't label them as liability. If your buddhi is not cultivated, it becomes a liability. If your buddhi is cultivated, then what? It becomes an asset. Okay? The mind, which is a brain, what happens? That is the first entry. The horses first what? Are coming in contact with the rein, and the rein along with the person. Okay? Now this is something which is also very important for you to understand. The external world, when you interact, the 5 senses will report and give the reporting to the mind. This is a place where emotions will take place. This is the place where the first kind of an understanding takes place. If your Sarthi is not skillful, what happens? All go haywire, right? So that means the reins are of no use really, right? So that means that even if the mind is the first reporting center, there is no problem. If there are emotions and if there are things which are there is no problem. If there is a Sarthi, the buddhi is cultivated. So that means even if the emotion of anger comes, even if the emotion of sadness comes, even if any great jealousy comes, if I am what? My buddhi is well cultivated. I know how to handle each of my emotions and how not to be totally run by them. This is what Bhagavad Gita is saying, that please use that buddhi that is given to you, cultivate it, make it more and more subtle and refined so that it can make better decisions. Without self-blame. Okay? This is something which is again very important, because at the end of my talk, somebody said, okay, now I begin to realize how important it is to use my faculty of choice with responsibility. But what about things that I have done in the past? All the things that I have done with no awareness, what do I do about that? Because I am carrying what we call two things that human beings carry. In Taitiriya Upanishad, it is mentioned. It is kimaham sadhuna karmam, kimaham papam akaramam iti. Okay? There is this whole thing of why did I not do what had to be done by me? Okay? And why did I do something which I should not have done? This is this whole thing of guilt we carry within ourselves. And the other one is hurt. Guilt with reference to my actions, hurt with reference to others' actions towards me. This guilt and hurt becomes the driving force of what? My actions and how I feel about myself. I can have all the success in the world and everybody else may think that, oh, this person is like really great. But how I feel about myself is what? Only with reference to how much guilt and hurt I'm carrying within myself. You have to free yourself from it, and for that you require buddhi. And that buddhi can also pray and ask the same universe and say that whatever has happened in the past, I could not have done any better because I did not know any better. Okay? But from now on, help me to guide what? To make the decisions based on what I understand now and not let my buddhi be carried away by past habits. This is a prayer. You're using your free will and saying, because you know the power of your previous programming is so strong. You walk out of Gita class, it's not we all become saints. We understand many things. It's not like we all become transformed human beings. Right? A lot of our actions are still guided by past patterns, past behaviors, past understanding. Okay? And you have to what? Constantly be alert and break away from past habits. And for that you need help. Okay? And you have to, the same universe which governs all the different laws, from the same universe you have to ask for that help. Prayer is an act. It is like law of karma, every action has a result. How prayer works, I will talk about maybe next time, or maybe I will talk about next time. Okay? What is the dynamic? You must understand how prayer works. Only then you can pray meaningfully.
I have a question. I wanted to bring it up
Yes.
a couple of times before, but I could not formulate it properly.
Yes.
Okay. I was attending a leadership and corporate social responsibility seminar. And there was one very eminent, and they talked about greed.
Yeah.
To accumulate more than what we need and don't share it. And we need to acquire more and more. There was a lot of discussion. And one eminent doctor from Bombay, starts with A, I forget his name. He's an art specialist. So he had gone to America and a conference with psychologists or something, And you mentioned something about the cortex, how that Gita develops your cortex. So something similar was asked, and this doctor said that the 7 psychologists and brain surgeons they figured out that there is a chemical imbalance in the body that makes you act in a certain way. Means greed. So it's not that you're not a spiritual person or something. It's an actual chemical imbalance that makes you act in that certain way. To which this teacher responded pretty callous. That's total rubbish. This doctor. And he said that what you learned from our book, that the subtle body controls the gross body. What you are suggesting is the gross body is controlling the subtle body. I've not understood this. Can you throw some light on this?
See, the thing is, I don't see any. One thing is very important to understand, that the laws of karma, they operate through body, they operate through mind, they have to operate through different mechanisms, right? So it is, let's say this genetics. We said, okay, now you can look at the model and you can say that, okay, any disadvantage that you have, let's say you're born with some defect or whatever, you can have 2 reasons. One is you can say genetics, and you can say genetics, or you can say karma. Both possibilities, right? So it seems as though both are in conflict with each other.
Genetics would be karma, no?
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So even chemical is karma only. Everything is connected. See, if the imbalance has to manifest through certain mechanism.
I understand to that.
Yeah.
What is the later part? The gross body, what there is not correct with my preaching, the gross body cannot control the subtle body. And here, by taking this chemicals medicine, you are suggesting that the gross body can control the buddhi.
In fact, it is constantly, there are no separate things. There is no one thing called gross body, the second thing is subtle body. There is a constant interaction that is happening. Constant. And karma works through that. Karma works through gross body as well as subtle body as well as the interaction between the two. And this is something which is very simple. For example, as I said, Surya was showing that part. Somebody was asking how, based on what are you making a statement that the understanding of dharma is something which is intuitive, you don't need to learn from anywhere. Okay? So that means it's something that we actually intuitively understand, that I know what is right, I know what is wrong. But now if you look at the physiology, what Surya was saying is that there are neurons which are found, which are what we call mirror neurons. Okay? That shows that whatever that other person is feeling, you are able to feel. That means not only you know that I don't want to be hurt, you also know that others don't want to be hurt. The mirror neurons do that job. Okay? Then when you do something good, there is one center of the brain which is giving pleasure that gets activated. Okay? So that means laws of karma, the one thing is subtle, your intention, but it gets manifested in your physical brain constantly. So there is a constant, there is a constant interaction between the causal, the subtle, and the physical. There's constant. The whole system is given in a way that one is not independent of the other, and laws of karma work through all. It works through causal, it works through subtle, and it works through physical. And it is one whole part. You can't just separate the whole thing. There are connections. In fact, you will see the physical illness will affect your mind, and what you are thinking will affect your physical being. So there are interconnections. You can't say only one affects the other. That way of looking at it is not accurate. Is it okay?
You've always been a magician.
Listening to what both of you have just said, I've been struggling with the fact that my mother has high blood pressure. And so one can say that the high blood pressure makes her irritable. Or does her anxiety create the high
High
blood
pressure.
pressure?
Exactly.
And by doing meditation
Yes.
and calming her down,
Yes.
the high blood pressure has fallen.
Exactly.
Not that she doesn't have to take the medicine,
Yes.
but there's a reaction. Like for example, sugar. You know, if you are diabetic, you have a craving for sugar. You can give in to it, or you can tell your mind that this is not good for me, I will not have it. Not that you don't want it, not that you don't crave it. The chemical imbalance in your body makes you want it. But your wisdom can tell you that this is not good for me and I should not have it. That is actually, I think, what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
That your senses will want to run here, there, and
Yes,
everywhere.
absolutely.
Your senses will make you depressed, your senses will make you happy. But you as the charioteer, as a wise person, can decide to keep them in control.
Exactly. You can guide them, right, to get to where you want them to go. Right? Control is like a very this thing, but you know you can guide them. You can master them.
You can master.
Yeah, you can master them. And this is what Gita is talking about, mastery. By cultivating your buddhi.
And good practices, like for example,
Yeah.
fasting,
Yeah.
enables you to master the sense of
Senses,
of
absolutely.
hunger. So you know,
Absolutely.
some of these things can through practice be taught.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why we have meditation, we have fasting, we have understanding of all these different things which will cultivate. That Sarthi is cultivated, is refined, is subtle, is able to navigate and get to where one has to go. Otherwise it is wasted life. This is beautiful imagery. Okay? But it interplays, I think both are connected. And one is not one linear cause and effect, it affects each way it happens.
Which was the Upanishad? Three. Sattvikarma.
Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya. I'll end the prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavakai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vitrishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. last class, we saw what is Karma Yoga and what is the purpose of Karma Yoga, right? Karma Yoga it's a technical term. It only means that when you recognize moksha as the end in your life, and you recognize that you need self-growth for self-discovery, which is a much bigger vision of who you are, and you initiate karma for self-growth and not just to get this and to get that, then it is what called Karma Yoga. And two important aspects of Karma Yoga is Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. When I make a choice of what I do, I take into consideration all these different dharmas. One is Samanya Dharma, Swadharma, and also going a little bit beyond that and becoming a contributor. So this is what we call this whole process of growth. Okay? And when I receive the result of action, then I understand that there are laws at work which will have much bigger vision than what I know, and therefore even if things don't come according to what I expect, I don't get into one of the major problems that human beings get into. One is what? Self-pity and labeling oneself as a failure, and the second is feeling that I'm a victim, that I'm so good, the world is so bad, right? And then this whole thing of why me, okay? Why all this happens to me. These two frameworks are so self-defeating, and if you begin to see everything from either I'm a failure or I'm a victim, it actually puts you in a spin, in a vicious circle from where you can never get out. So understanding the laws operate and they are infallible in nature gives you a certain composure, but from that composure you use your free will, right, more effectively, because you free yourself from all the burdens that you are carrying. Okay? So we are not saying that because the laws are taking care of the result, therefore I don't do anything. That is a wrong message that people kind of, the laws give results based on your actions, but not just your present actions. They connect it to the past actions and also actions of everyone else. And this is what we saw of those who came for the talk. They said there is this Indra's net which connects so many different forces to give the result. Okay? Once you understand that, then the composure is very natural. It's out of understanding of realities. It is not like reprogramming myself, oh, I have to be composed, I have to be composed. This is again the problem that people have. People think that they just need to reprogram, oh, I have to be like this and I have to be like that. And nobody can be like that. Okay? Only when you understand things differently about how the universe is, then naturally those attitudes and values come. And the whole approach of Gita is to make you see some realities, so that in light of understanding those realities, you can align your living and your decision making in keeping with those realities. Okay? The whole approach is like that. Okay? Now, there is another thing which I just wanted to, as on a side, I wanted to mention, because for our wonderful retreat came a psychiatrist. And he is a very famous psychiatrist, and he runs one of the biggest mental health centers in the country. And he said, when he listened to Gita, he said something which is very beautiful, and he used his technical words. So I just want you to see how Gita is just in line with all these modern things that everybody is discovering. Okay? So what he said is that when the psychiatrist, he's a medical doctor, they study human brain, okay, there are certain, they try to spot different places where different activities take place, right? So there is one place where all the emotions, which are what we call instincts. So all the instincts are what? You have fears, you have sadness, you have love, happiness, jealousy. These are all what we call instinctual emotions. So there is a center. There is a center in the brain which kind of, from where these responses are generated. Okay? Then there is another center in the brain where, as we say in Bhagavad Gita, that this is what we say as kind of a mind, where immediately the external responses generate a certain, external situations generate certain responses. Then there is a place called buddhi, where you need not always, there is a capacity in the brain where you need not always go along with that instinctual emotions, right? And this particular part is what we call cortex. Okay? So in cortex, a lot more decision making is taking place, where you assess whether you are going to go along with just this instincts, or are you going to base your decision making on some other understanding, which is what we call dharma, swadharma. So that means there is a much bigger framework within which you do your decision making than just these instincts. So he says that Bhagavad Gita helps you to develop this cortex part of the brain, which is making you far more responsible and assess the situation from a much broader perspective. Okay? Then there is another center of the brain that the psychiatrists are beginning to look into, and that is what we call neocortex. Okay? Now that is one more level, which is not only I do what is expected of me and follow dharma, but there is one more step, which is what you call lokasangraha, where I actually become a contributor, I show compassion, I show care, I show concern. So that is moving even further, right? And this is actually, Bhagavad Gita really makes you that human growth is what? Moving from instincts to cortex to neocortex. Okay? It covers the entire range of what we can do with our human brain. Okay? So that was, I thought it was really nice the way he analyzed the whole thing, because we've been talking about it, and without denying, this is one thing that Lord Krishna does not deny the fact that there are emotions. And it is not telling you not to have those emotions. It says, hey, those emotions, you still have a way how to handle those emotions. And this is what we call management of emotions. So it understands the psychology, human brain, everything totally accurately. In fact, it is just something which is amazing. So I thought you should know that. Okay. Now, this particular, the next verse is Arjuna is asking one question. Okay? And his question is something which is very pertinent. It says, now this is chapter 3, verse 1. Arjuna vacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So you chant after me. Arjuna vacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So now Arjuna has this question. Here he says, up to now I have been listening to your teaching and I understand jayasi buddhihi karmanaha. Okay? So here he says that first you told me about the nature of Atma. And what is the nature of Atma? Atma is already free, it is indestructible, it is untouched by anything, and this is something that it is knowing the nature of this Atma is solution to my fundamental human problem and my search for freedom. Okay? So this is what I understood. Then you also talked about what? Karma, okay, actions, and how these actions, are something that will help you to understand this knowledge. All this I understand very well, but actions in themselves will not give me that freedom that I am searching for. Okay. So now he says, if knowledge is going to lead to the final freedom that I am searching for, then I can understand if you are telling me to do some nice actions of compassion and giving and all, but you are asking me karmani ghore ma. Okay, you are asking me to engage in a war. It's not just normal action or anything, right? Why are you asking me to stand here and fight and take lives of so many people? Okay, which will have not only repercussions on how the society is going to be today, but 100 years, because we see that war economies, you see any war economy, generations are affected. It's not just what is happening now. So here he says, I don't understand. If I want the freedom, and if I feel that I am responsible, I feel that I am a good human being, right? So I can take care of my growth through other means, but not through these actions which are too difficult for me to take. Okay? So here he says that why are you asking me to do that? Okay? Now this is the answer to this question is something which is a very important thing, where Lord Krishna answers. Here he says, Yajnatha karmano yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Chant after me. Yajnatha karmano yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So the key here is, one thing is you do an action, but the purpose and the intention with which you do an action counts a lot. Okay? So what he says is, I totally agree with you that if you want to fight the war for your personal gain, and to think that after winning, either for your personal gain and say that after I win the war, I will have this whole big kingdom, I will enjoy, I will have power, I will have wealth, and if it is for that, then I totally understand that is not a war worth fighting for. Okay? If you are fighting the war to just take a personal revenge, then also it's an ordinary, that you have been wrong and now you have to fight back. Okay? So both these intentions, if you have behind fighting a war, then I totally agree with you that it is not worth it. Okay? But if you fight the war for exactly, I think you mentioned last time greater good, So this is what he says, this idea of yajna. Yajna is something that you have to understand what it means. Okay? Yajna is a Vedic ritual. Okay? In this Vedic ritual, every morning you recognize the fact that your existence is what? Dependent upon so many forces. Okay? And this is a reality. Okay? Generally what happens is that we don't bring this fact to our understanding, right? In our conscious mind, we don't have this whole feeling of, that so many forces are working for us. We take it all for granted. Okay? Now this Vedic ritual makes you sensitive about this fact, that you are not living in this world alone. You are not here just, an isolated human being. You are connected to forces. Okay? And those forces that you are connected to, they are benevolent to you. They are looking after you. So this whole thing of, feeling of, that things are bad, and that whole psyche, it's a very deep psyche. Okay? it changes that circle. That all the forces are helping me. Imagine to think like that. They are helping me, they are contributing to my well-being. And what is my job? To recognize that contribution and show what? Gratitude. Because when I imagine that the people say, oh, but if I understand that, then that's enough. Life cannot be just lived in the mind. Okay? You have to express and you have to demonstrate what you know. Okay? One of the important examples of that is love. Okay? You love so many people who are very dear to you, but if you don't express that love, what will happen? The other person will continue to feel not loved. Okay? It's not enough just to feel it, it is very important to express it. Okay? Appropriate expression is something which is very critical for health of a human being. No human being can live, everybody deep inside, one of the deepest problems is they don't feel, they feel that they were not loved enough. Now imagine, in the name of spirituality, you tell yourself, I want to be detached from the world. So many people come to us and they tell us, we are told by our whoever that you have to be detached with the world. We can be detached with many things, but not with our children. And I said, thank God. Thank God you're not, because your kids, they need your love. In the name of detachment, if you stop showing little love that you showed, they will be a disaster. We are not talking about, please understand, life is lived with emotions. Anybody who's teaching you not to have emotions and to be detached and all doesn't know what they are talking about. Okay? You have to express. You have to express gratitude. You have to express love. You have to express your care. You have, your kindness.
Yeah.
Life is lived God. That is so much essential part of human needs. Okay? So this is where again you express
your hurt.
Sorry?
You also have to express your hurt.
Your hurt also, this is very, very important, right? We also have to learn to express your hurt. It's very, very important. Generally what happens is that we shove, this is a very, in fact, it's a very important point, Usha, that you are breaking. We think that we only have to express good things because from young age, we are told, our parents tell us, everybody, the whole society tells us, good human beings, good boys, what? Don't cry, they don't get angry, they don't get all kinds of things that you don't do if you're a good person. Now, as a child, what do you want to do? You want to please your parents, right? You want to be good in the eyes of your parents or elderly people and all that. And you have all these emotions. Nobody can avoid those emotions. You can't avoid anger. A simple thing like you are playing with a marble and somebody takes away your marble. As a child, you are going to be angry and you are going to be sad. Okay? And you are constantly told, hey, if you are good, you don't do that. What do we do then?
Repress.
We repress, we suppress. So that means we just kind of shove it somewhere. Okay? And yesterday I was giving a class to all these young people and they told me that there is a big book by a very famous psychologist, now I forgot her name, an American. And she said that when you numb some emotions, right, for example, you learn how to numb it, means it's there but somehow you learn to ignore it, to shove it aside. Okay? They said if you shove that aside, then not only you numb that, you numb some other good emotions to happiness and all that, because you are hurting the whole system. Okay? So that means if you suppress what we think are negative, even that labeling is something which is so dangerous. Positive and negative. Positive and negative means what? I should all the time have only positive, and negative is something that I have to avoid. That, that itself is a very wrong understanding. Emotions are emotions. You have range of emotions. Human psyche is born with range of emotions. Different situations have to produce different types of emotions which are appropriate. Okay? So therefore, not expressing your other emotions are again a huge problem. And in fact, all the numbing of the whole system takes place when you have not adequately expressed the emotions. Okay? Now, so that means not only, very good Tushar, not only you need to express your love and care and kindness and everything, but you also need to express what? Your displeasure, your hurt, where you disagree. Okay? Now, in an adult situation, what happens is that whenever you are not happy with something or whenever you are hurt, then we generally try to avoid talking about it. Why? Because you think that that may lead to conflict. Right? If I show my displeasure, then what? The person will say something and then I will say something, so then it will flare up and it will create some big fight, and you want to avoid it so you don't say anything. But by doing that, you are really not solving anything, you are procrastinating.
Actually making it worse.
You are making it worse. Right? Because you have this feeling and you are not expressing it. Okay? Now next time you see the person, okay, are you seeing the person with a totally free mind?
No.
You are carrying,
Yeah.
you're carrying this
Carrying
hurt.
the baggage. No?
You are carrying the baggage.
Reach that person up.
Absolutely. Right? You are carrying the baggage with which you see the person, and even if you try to be all very normal, right? Now the person says something else which the person may or may not have, but now you have created a lens through which you assess those words because you have a baggage. So that means you, either the person is again saying that this person is not resisting, so is not even aware and continue to do what the person is doing, or you yourself will create some understanding that this is what the person is saying, and you what? Make it grow and grow and grow. One day, all these volcano will burst.
Or you know what happens? It's
Or, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, can I?
Yeah, please.
Or the other thing that happens is the distance becomes so large
Yes,
that it's you can't go back.
yes.
Can I use 2 minutes of your time? I met this couple, they must be in their late 50s. For all practical purposes, they're two really lovely human beings, quite integrated in their own way. And then about, I think, 2 years later, meaning I met them about 2-3 years a while ago, and then a year ago I met them again. And I happened to ask the woman, I said, so how is your husband? And she said, oh, we're going to separate. So it left me, none of my business.
Yeah.
We can separate, they can get together. But this intrigued me. So at some point I asked her through the evening, I said, what happened? Because you guys actually seemed quite weller than most people that I know. And she said, we hadn't spoken for maybe the last 6-7 years. And I said, and why? And she said, her words were, she said, trying to keep the harmony within the marriage. Anything that was conflicting, we never spoke about. And then we reached a point where it was too hard to basically bridge that gap. So she said, I said, what would those subjects be? She said, amongst many others, normally for a couple, the subjects are related to the children. Meaning, it's, the mother has something to say and the father has something to say. And it's not necessary that, you agree on the issue. You can agree to disagree because each person's relationship with their child, a mother will have it differently, a father will have it differently. And she said it just became so painful that just didn't speak about it. So now one parent lives with one child and the other parent lives with the other child. And I thought, so I asked her, I said, so every time there's an issue, you recommend one should bring it up and one should have a conversation about it? And she said, yes, I think so, because in relationships, when you talk, it's a safer bet than to have quietude.
Absolutely. So therefore, addressing hurt and expressing it is very, very important. Now, then if expressing it is better, then we also then need to know how to express it in a way that you avoid as much as possible the conflict. Okay? So this is where a lot of people, there is a nice book called Non-Violent Communication, because you have to express your displeasure, but you have to make it as non-violent as possible. Okay? So one simple rule for non-violent communication is that when you have to go and tell somebody that you didn't like something that the person did, right? What you have to do is, generally we have a tendency to say, you did like this, you were like that, and that is something that really hurt me. Okay? This, what they say, is a blaming tone. Okay? You go and you start blaming the other person by saying you're like that, you're like that, you're like that. Okay? Now imagine if you are at the recipient end. What would be your reaction if somebody comes and tells you you're like that? You're going to be defensive. Nobody is going to say, oh my God, really? Am I like that? Everybody is going to what? Say, oh, what do you mean? So, counter-attack. That is what is going to happen, right? Because you feel hurt and then you want to hurt back. So there, when you have to say something to somebody, don't start by, you're like that. Start by saying, this is how I felt. Because when you say you're like that, there is a huge big judgment. Maybe the person did not even mean it and you felt like it. Okay? So that means there is no 100% truth in that. Because who knows what the intention of the other person was. But when you talk about yourself, that I felt like this, then there is 100% truth in it. Because this is what you felt. And you're explaining why you felt this way. So if you say like that, then the other person also has chance to clarify what that person's intention was. Okay? So you always start about speaking about yourself rather than labeling the other person. This is one of the most important ways to initiate a conversation. Now, of course, the other person also has to be receptive, because in order to communicate, it takes two people. Okay? Now, there are two possibilities. Either the person will listen to you and reflect, okay? And you also give the other person to clarify his or her standpoint. You also listen. It's not like generally we think that when we are heard, we are right, and we just kind of have to say it out without listening to somebody else's perspective. Maybe the person has a totally different understanding and different intention, and you also have to be willing to listen to it with an open mind. Okay? And revise your understanding if the person is able to convince you in some things, right? It's not only the other person has to be open, you also have to be open. Both have to be open. Okay? Many times our teacher says that in a conversation, when you are talking to somebody, after you have said what you have said, okay, before you totally listen to the other person, while the other person is talking, you are already preparing your response. Right? When you are already preparing your response, you are hardly paying attention. You are not really paying attention. And imagine each one is doing the same. how much attempt are you really making? We are so much all in a hurry and we are totally caught in our mental world. We have no leisure. You have to learn to relax. You can be very active, but you can be calm. So there is this very interesting, I get all the material from all my other class and their students. They tell me stories and I tell them back somewhere else, right? So there is this, another psychologist or whatever. So in London Metro, okay, there was this person who was speaking to oneself. And everybody was like very cautious, nobody wanted to go anywhere near him because this person was speaking and it was just chattering with himself and all that. And then everybody kept away. Okay, so now another person just went and sat next to him, and then people were a little bit surprised that this person is not bothered by this chatter, right? And then somebody asked him, so how come you are not disturbed? He says, you know what, this person has a chatter here and then he's speaking it out. We all have chatter inside. The only difference between us and him is we keep it to ourselves. So we have this constant chatter of all these different connections and all the different things and all that. We are not talking about, see, you cannot be totally all the time. Advaita, you have a question? Yeah, right? So it's not like you always have to be always very deliberate, okay, what's my next thought and what's my next thought and what's, you will go crazy, right? Because the mind has its own way of moving and there is a natural flow that the mind, but with meditation practices, for example, guide that.
You are understanding to that you reach a stage where you say that, okay, I reacted, that was wrong. You don't want to again bring it out. He reacted, that's his nature, it's his karma and my karma. You don't want to again, is that brushing it off?
It
or
is
you
a
don't
little
want
bit.
to
See this
say, it's
karma.
okay, you know, it's not conflict, but it's just that you don't want to add on to it.
Okay.
So I'll say something, I'll clarify, I feel like this, and if we keep doing that, and I don't know whether it ends or it keeps continuing.
Okay. Nita is asking a very, very important question, right? She's saying now for everything, if you start, keep on, then everything will become like a huge issue and everything requires this hours and hours of discussion and so that's true. When do you take up a point and when do you let it go? This is a very, there's a lot of skill required in that, okay? The general rule is, if really inside you are not carrying anything, right, then it is not bothering you. So you let it go. You let it go, right? But if it is bothering you, if the hurt is there, right, it is there. If it is not there, then lovely. You can just brush it aside, lovely. But if it is there and you are nursing it and you are not expressing it, this is where it is dangerous. So if you can come to a point where it doesn't really hurt you, then that is lovely. Okay. But nursed, unexpressed feelings will drive your whole outlook and it will make you subjective human being and without even realizing it. And that's what will also cause suffering. So you have
You really
no
don't need to
choice.
clarify all these things with everybody. But it's for the people who are important in your life.
Who you
Exactly.
There are a lot of people who might be saying a lot of things, you might not agree with them, but it doesn't
But
matter.
who does?
Okay.
Absolutely. Right?
So you have to only bother about the people whom you are bothered about.
Those
Who you care about.
are
Make a
carrying
difference
you.
to you.
Exactly. The rule is, if you are carrying it, right? If somebody says something and you just meet that person in the party and next time you don't even know when you will see that person next, and it doesn't affect you at all, you don't need to pick fights with everyone, right? The whole world doesn't have to agree with what you are saying and you don't need to convince the whole world.
But you won't be nursing that in your mind also.
Exactly. That is the thing. If you are not nursing it in your mind, then there is no need. Right?
But you know the person so well that you stop nursing that in your mind.
So
And
then
you come to that stage, people who care about you, bothered about you, know about you. I think you come to a stage after the point where you say, I care enough that it doesn't bother me, that I don't nurse it.
I'm working on that.
Or it's like accepting, you say the easy way to do it is if you think about a young child or a person, an elderly person who has Alzheimer's. You don't, they can say anything, they can do anything, you accept it because you understand that this is not personal to you. You don't hurt, it doesn't hurt. If you can take that same feeling to people whom you really care about, that it's about them, it's not about you.
Excellent.
They are having a bad day.
If you don't carry it within, see, this is the very key point, right? That is not the main thing. What are you carrying? Because if you're not carrying it, that's okay, that's fine. You, in fact, the whole thing is in the whole Gita. There is a very beautiful. You will see there is a verse on meditation which starts with Bahyan Sparshan Bahir Krutva. Okay? External objects, keeping them external. Okay? What does it mean? External objects are always external. we carry them all in our mind, and what? We suffer. Okay? If, as Anjali says, the person you understand that that person has limitation, it is if you don't personalize it and if you don't carry with it, it's fine. Okay? But if you are carrying within yourself, then you need to address it for your own well-being. That is the key.
Actually,
It's also how you understand the person's nature, no? Like you're saying, if there's a Urdu word fitrat, like if you understand the person's nature, then you say, okay, this person, if you can understand it and you totally, then you don't really get affected, then you don't carry, like if somebody's done something, people say, oh, it didn't affect you, it didn't get hurt. But if you understand that person's nature and where he was coming from, you say, I know why he's doing or what he's doing, and you move on. So then you're not carrying it.
See, there is the wisdom also lies in using your free will a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? No, it is very important because you can't also, see, there are certain boundaries that every human being has to keep in a relationship. Okay? What happens is, I mean, I know that one person who comes to my class, she is, I mean, she's very bright and she understands a lot, but she has no confidence in speaking. So if I ask a question and all, she gets all, so I said, but why, you really understand so well? And she says, somehow, whenever she's with her husband, he makes her feel as though she doesn't know anything. Right? So now she is accepted because she feels, right, that now what am I? I'm not going to fight or whatever. But this is a personality disorder. You know, letting go. But we take it to the other extreme. Okay? The whole skill of life, it really is interventions at the right time, at the right place, in a right manner. Okay? We go either from just fighting it all out or being over passive. Okay? Over passive has its costs. Please, you think that, oh, passive, oh, I've let it go. Okay, you've let it go, but it is showing as a disorder, which is a very obvious disorder. It's not healthy for you.
A very nice story in the biography of Sri Ramakrishna, where he's meditating, and where he meditates, there's a little cave and there's a snake, a male and a female, there's a snake there. And every morning when he sits under, wherever he sits to meditate, the snake comes and hisses and whatever. So a monk watching his master meditating suddenly sees that Sri Ramakrishna gets up with a stick. And he actually, he was meaning the incarnation of Sri Ramakrishna, meaning there was nothing that kind of created anger or anything. He was just such a wonderful soul. And he went after that snake with a stick. So the monk, after 2-3 days, built the courage and said to him, but you keep preaching about ahimsa and all this. I saw you were ready to beat the snake up. And he said, once in a while, you must show your teeth. It's very important. So once in a while, in a communication situation, the other person needs to know that you're very alive and kicking and you can state your own. You're just not getting into it because you don't want that conflict. That does not mean that you're not all there.
Absolutely. See, this whole thing of non-violence and all, it is not only applying to others, it also applies to yourself. You also have what? Responsibility to protect yourself. There is no human, our Swamiji says, there is no human relation that exists without boundaries. You this much and no more. That skill is something which is very important. We think we are letting go, but actually it cannot, because it follows order.
Yes. 100%, I agree. Yeah, when you set the
When you
boundaries,
set the boundaries,
it makes everything much easier.
it makes
And people
everything
follow.
much easier.
Yeah.
Right?
I think people
And that also shows that you respect yourself.
And with each person, different kind of.
Exactly. With each person different type of boundaries. Okay? It is something which is so critical for your well-being and the well-being of others. Okay? And this is exactly what, and in fact, Arjuna had the same problem. He says, let it go. He had the same thing. Why should I get into, I'm not even interested in this kingdom, so let it go. Let them have it. Here he says, hey, it's not as simple as that. Oh, it doesn't bother me, let them take it. This is exactly what Lord Krishna is saying. Even though it is unpleasant, karmani ghore ma, it's unpleasant, but he still has to stand up. And why does he have to stand up? For what?
Greater.
Greater good. Okay? So this is what he says. In the scheme of things, Arjuna occupies a very special place. Okay? Duryodhana is unethical, and he has been unethical what? Not only on one count. There is a story which shows again and again and again, and just totally
Habitual offender.
blatant. Exactly. Habitual offender. Okay? And has absolutely no consideration. Absolutely. Right? Now, but he is very powerful. So therefore, if a small little person who is a victim of his unfairness, what power does that person have to fight him? Zero. Even 5 or 10 of them get together, they have no power. In the grand scheme of things, there is this person who is Arjuna, who is what? Who has the power, who is capable of handling it. Okay? And he has been wronged not only on one count but series of counts. And every time he has said, okay, now let it be, let it be, let it be. He says, hey, now the time has come. You have to stand up. The same action of fighting, if you do for the sake of what? Your responsibility in the scheme of things, then that becomes Mukta Sangha Samachara. It will free you because you are playing the role that the order what? Expects you to play. If you shun your responsibility, then you actually